Hello, my name is Mayanka. I am accounts and a finance trainer from Uplatz. Today in this class we will discuss section 139 subsection 1c. Section 139 subsection 1c, and we will also contain or we will also discuss the some other provision of section 139. Section 139 subsection 3, subsection 4, 5, 6, 6a, 9 means we will discuss the relevant provisions of the Income Tax Act or section 139, relevant provision of section 139. So now we will start our discussion. Now we will discuss. First, we will discuss section 139 1c, section 139 subsection 1c, subsection 1c. A specified class or classes of the person to be exempted from filing of return of income. We will discuss the persons, the specific class of person, the specific class of person who are exempted to file his return of income, means the persons who are not required to file the return of income, who are not required to file the return of income, means who are exempted from filing of return of income. So, as per the provision of Income Tax Act, the person who fulfill the condition which are mentioned in section 139 is required to furnish his return of income. Every person who fulfill the condition which are mentioned under section 139, subsection 1, under section 139 subsection 1, then such assessee is required to file his return of income, and such return of income is required to be filed on or before the due date of filing of his return of income, on or before the due date of filing of his return of income. As per the provision in the case of individual and HUF and AOPBY, if the total income of the assessee is more than basic exemption limit, if it is more than basic exemption limit, then the assessee is required to file the return of income. In the case of company or in the case of firm, in each case, whether it is loss or profit, or in all cases, the return is required to be filed compulsory. Filed compulsory. So, as per the provision of Income Tax Act, if there is any assessee, means there is an individual and his total income is only 1,50,000, then he is not compulsorily required to file his return of income. He is not required to file compulsorily, not required to file his return of income. So, for the purpose of reducing the tax for reducing the compliance burden of the small taxpayer, the central government has been empowered to notify the class and the classes of the persons who are not required to file the return of income, means who are exempted from the filing of return of income, who are exempted from the filing of the return of income, is that for the purpose of for the small taxpayer, the government has notified some specific class or the classes of the person who are exempted for filing of return of income, who, if they are satisfying the condition, then these following class of person will not be required to file his return of income, not required to be filed any return of income. Every notification under section 139, subsection 1c shall, as soon as may be after its issue, be laid before each house of parliament. Means if there is any notification which is required to be finalized, then first, before the finalization, it will be presented in the both house of parliament. Both house of parliament while it is in the session, and the session may be total period of 30 days, it may be for the 30 days. If both house of parliament satisfy with such a notification, then they will accept, and it will become a provision, or it will become a law. But if both house or any house of parliament is making any modification in such a notification, then such a notification will be effective after the modification If both house of the parliament agree that there is no need of no there should not be issue, means there is no need of a notification, sorry, modification, then no modification is required. If both house agree that the notification should not be issued, then the notification shall not be issued, means before the issuance of any notification, such a notification is presented before the both house of parliament, before the both house of parliament. If they accept it or accept it, but with such modification, then it will be applicable. If such a notification is rejected by the both house of parliament, then it will not be applicable, Now we will discuss return of law. Return of laws under section 139 subsection 3. Return of loss means if there is any assessee who is bearing the losses, if he has a business loss, if he has any other loss, just like any capital gain loss, short-term capital gain loss, or long-term capital gain loss. So in the case of loss, to carry forward the amount of loss, the return is required to be filed. Means the loss return is required to be filed under section 139 subsection 3. Subsection 3 is that if there is any assessee, he has the amount of loss. If there is any assessee, such assessee has the amount of loss. So such assessee is also required to file the return of income, and such a return of income it will be filed by the assessee within the specific time period, which is specified under section 139 subsection 1, means within the same time. And such a loss return is required to be filed in the same manner, means there will not be any change. There will not be any change in the filing of return of income. All the provision of filing of return of income, the provision of date of filing of return of income will remain same. There will not be any change. There will not be any change. So section 80 requires mandatory filing of return of income under section 139 subsection 3 on or before the due date of filing of return of income. Is that if there is any assessee has the amount of loss and he want to carry forward such loss, if he wants to carry forward such loss, then to carry forward such loss, it is mandatory to file the return of income. And such a return of income is required to be filed on or before the due date of filing of return of income. Means, for the example, if there is a example that there is an organization ABC and such organization has the business loss. For the example, the loss is 5 lakh. 50,000 rupees. Sorry, the amount of loss is 50,000 rupees, and such ABC wants to carry forward such amount of loss in the next year so that it can adjust it with the profit of next year. So it is mandatory for the ABC company. It is mandatory for the ABC to furnish the return of income on or before the due date, which is specified under section 139 subsection 1. Means for the organization, it is mandatory to furnish the return of income, and such a return of income is required to be furnished by the assessee on or before the due date, of filing of such a return of income, on or before the due date. Such a return of income is required to be filed by the assessee. If ABC is an organization, is a company, and the books of accounts are not required to be audited, then the return is required to be filed like 31st October. If ABC furnish such a return of income after 31st October, then it is not eligible. Then ABC will not be eligible. To carry forward such process. Means if there is any another example, there is a Mr. Sham and he has loss, business loss, any loss of rupees 25,000 rupees. He has a loss of 25,000 rupees. He want to carry forward it. So for the purpose of this, Sham should file Sham should file his return of income. His return of income ITR on or before 31st July 2020. On or before 31st July 2020. The return is required to be filed by the assessee on or before 31st July 2021. If he does not file, if he file, if he file his ITR on, for the example, on 15th day of August, then he can't carry forward such law. He cannot carry forward such loss. He cannot carry forward such amount of loss. If he does not file the return of income on or before the expiry of due date. So, as per section 80, requires mandatory filing of return of income in the case of loss. Means the loss return is required to be filed by the assessee under section 139 subsection 3 on or before the due date of filing of return of income. So that if he want to carry forward, if the assessee wants to carry forward the following losses. Number one, business losses under section 72 subsection 1. Speculative business losses under section 73 subsection 3, subsection 2, sorry. Loss from specific business under section 73A subsection 2. Loss under the capital gain under section 74 subsection 1, and the loss from the activities, of owning and maintaining, loss from the activities of owning and maintaining race horses under section 74 subsection A, 74A subsection 3, subsection 3. Means if there is any assessee wants to carry forward any of these laws or all these losses, then he is mandatorily required to furnish his return of income, and the return of income will be loss return of loss under section 139 subsection 3. If it is filed within due date, then he is eligible to carry forward such losses, otherwise he will not be eligible to carry forward such losses. Consequently, section 139 subsection 3 require the furnish of return of income, and such a return of income is a return of such a loss is required to be filed by the assessee on or before the due date of filing of return of income, which is defined under section 139 subsection 1 for carry forward these losses. However, loss under the head of income from house property under section 71 subsection 3 and unobserved depreciation can be carried forward or for the set of even though return of loss has not been filed before the due date. Means in the case when there is any assessee, for example, there is any assessee, he has, means just like there is a Ram and he has house property loss. He has house property loss, for the example, it is 12,500 rupees. And he does not file his return of income up to return of loss up to 31st July 2021. Then, and he has filed his return of income on 15th day of September, means 15th day of August 21. Then, in this situation, he will be eligible to carry forward such a house property loss. Means in the case of house property loss or in the case of unabsorbed depreciation, we can carry forward it if the return of income is not filed, by the assessee within the due date. Means the business loss, capital gain loss, speculative business loss, specific business loss, we cannot be carry forward if the return of income is not filed by the assessee within due date. If it is filed within due date, then we will eligible to carry forward it. But in the case of house property loss, if the return of income is not filed by the assessee on or before the due date, then we will also eligible to carry forward the house property loss or the unabsorbed depreciation. If the return of income is filed by the assessee after 31st July, then we will also eligible to carry forward such house property loss and the unabsorbed amount of depreciation for the purpose of set off. For the purpose of set off. A return of loss has to be filed by the assessee in his own interest, and the non-receipt of the notice from the assessing officer requiring him to file the return and cannot be a valid excuse under any circumstances for non-filing of such a return of income. Means the assessee means the return of income loss return is required to be filed by the assessee in his own interest if he want to carry forward the losses, if he want to carry forward the losses, if and the non-receipt of the notice from the AO requiring him to furnish a return of income cannot be a valid excuse. Means he will not present that, or he will not say that I have not received any notice from the AO, so I will not furnish the return, so I have not furnished the return of loss. This will not be considered as excuse. Means any excuse will not be acceptable if the loss return is not furnished by the assessee. Belated return. Section 139, subsection 4. Belated return means the assessee. If there is any return which is required by the assessee, then it is required to be filed by the assessee on or before the due date. But if such a return is not filed within the due date, then you can furnish it. You can furnish it after a due date, but up to the certain means up to the specific time. Up to the specific time means such a return, then such a return will be known as a belated return. Then such a return will be known as a belated return. Means if there is a return which is filed by the assessee after the due date, then such a return will be known as belated return, or such a return can be filed up to the specific date. Means if there is any assessee, he does not furnish his return of income up to the or within the time which is allowed by the assessee under section 139 subsection 1. If there is any assessee, he fails to furnish his return of income on or before the due date which is specified under section 139 subsection 1, then he may furnish, such person may furnish his return of income for any previous year at any time, but before the end of relevant assessment year. Means such a return can be furnished by the assessee before the end of relevant assessment year or before the completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. Means, for the example, if there is a assessee Mohan, and in the case of one Mohan, the due date of filing of return of income is 31st July 2021, and he fails to furnish his return of income tax return. He fails to furnish his return of income. So he can furnish it. He may furnish it before the end of relevant assessment year. For such a previous year, the previous year is 20 and 21. The assessment year will be 21 and 22, and it will be and before the means the assessee can furnish his return of income before the expiry of such a assessment year, such a relevant assessment year. Means till 31st March 2022. Till 31st March 22, he can furnish his return of income. He can furnish his return of income or date of completion of assessment. Date of completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. Whichever is earlier means the end of the relevant financial year or the date of completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. Means he may furnish his belated return. He may furnish his return after the expiry of, after the due date of, which is defined in section 139 subsection 1. but before the end of relevant assessment year or before the completion of assessment year, before the completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. For the example, in the case of Mr. Mohan, the date of filing of his return of income is 31st July 2017, and the assessment year will be end on 31st March 2020. And the completion and the date of assessment means the assessment will be complete on 31st July 2022. So the date of filing of belated return, the date of filing of belated return will be till 31st March 2022. Means up to 31st March 2022, the assessee can, Mr. Mohan can furnish his return of income. Mr. Mohan can furnish his return of income. Revised return, section 139, subsection 5 means the assessee is required to furnish the return of income, but due to some cases there are some mistakes. Then the assessee can revise his return. Then the assessee can revise his return. Is that if there is a return which is furnished by the assessee under section 139, subsection 1, or any of the related return which is furnished by the assessee under section 139, subsection 4. And after the filing of return of income, the assessee finds some mistake. He find or discover any omission, any wrong statement. Then such assessee can revise his return. At any time. The return can be revised. At any time before the end of relevant assessment year or before the completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. Means he may furnish the revised return. The assessee can furnish the revised return at any time before the end of relevant assessment year or before the completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. Means the return can be revised. Before the completion of assessment year. Before the completion of assessment year. Before the completion of assessment year, relevant assessment year. Relevant assessment year or the date of completion of assessment, assessment, whichever is earlier. Means if there is any assessee, Mr. Sham, and he furnishes return of income, but after the furnishing of return of income, he finds some mistakes, he finds some omission, then he can revise his return. And the return can be revised by the assessee date of completion of relevant assessment year, means before the expiry of the assessment year or the date of completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. The date of completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. Example, now we will discuss a example. Explain with brief reason whether the return of income can be revised under section 139, subsection 5 of the Income Tax Act in the following cases. We can revise the return. Number 1 case, belated return, if it is filed under section 139, subsection 4. Always it can be filed, it can be revised. Return already revised once under section 139, subsection 5. If there is a return which is already revised, now we can again it is revised. We can again it is revised. Return of loss which is filed under section 139, subsection 3. We have filed the loss return, then we can revise it or not. So as per the provision of section 139, subsection 5, as per the provision of Income Tax Act, if there is any person who is required to furnish his return of income, then such person is required to file his return of income before the expiry of due date, and that due date is defined in section 139, subsection 1. And such person furnish his return of income within due date or after due date, means he furnished return of income within dured or belated return. He has furnished belated return. Then such assessee, and after the filing such a return, he has discovered some error, omissions, any misstatement. Then in this case, the assessee can revise his return. The assessee can revise his return, and such a return can be revised at any time. Such a return can be revised at any time before the end of relevant assessment year or before the completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. Means the return can be revised. The return can be revised before the completion of relevant assessment year or before the completion of assessment, before the completion of relevant assessment year or before the completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. So he can revise belated return also. Means the belated return which is defined in the section 139 section 4 will also be revised. It will also be retyped. It can be revised. So point one is a belated return. So the belated return which is defined in the section 139 section 4 can also be revised. It can also be revised. And if there is a return which is already revised, can we again revise it? So if there is a return which is revised under section 139 subsection 5, and after the first revision, the assessor discovers any other omission or any other mistake in such a revised return, he can furnish the second revised return. He can furnish the second revised return, and such a revised return is to be furnished within the prescribed limit. Means such a return should be revised, such a revised return should be revised by the assessee on or before the completion of assessment year or before the completion of assessment year or before the completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. Means within such a time limit the assessee is required to revise his return. It is implied that the return of income can be revised more than once within the prescribed time. Means within the prescribed time you can revise the return anytime. Number 3, the loss return. If after furnishing a loss return, if the assessee find if the assessee discover any of the omission, any of the error, then he can revise it. Means belated return, already revised return, and the loss return, it can be revised. Normal return, which is filed within the due date, will be revised. It will be revised. Particulars to be furnished with the return. What are the particulars which are required to be furnished by the assessee when the assessee he will furnish his return of income? Means what are the particulars which are required to be furnished by the assessee with his return of income? What are the information which are required to be furnished by the assessee when he will furnish his return of income? So the prescribed form of the return of income shall, in certain specific cases, require the assessee furnish the following information. Means the following particulars are required to be furnished by the assessee in the prescribed form. Number 1, income which is exempted from tax. Number 1, the income on which the tax is exempt. Means the exempted income. The income which are exempted from tax. Number 2, assets of the prescribed nature. The assets of the prescribed nature, value which is held by the assessee as a beneficial owner or otherwise, or in which he is beneficiary. Means the return is the return can be asked, or it can require the assessee to know about the assets. Means the nature of the assets and the value of the asset which is held by such assessee as a beneficiary owner. Means if there is any asset which is held by the assessee as a beneficiary interest, as a beneficiary interest, then such assessee will furnish the information about such assets. And if there is any assessee which had any assets as, and he is the beneficiary, he earn or he has taken the interest from such asset, then he will also contain, or he will also provide the information about such assets, about such assets. Means if there is any person, he is taking the benefit, he is taking the benefit from a particular assets, then he will disclose it because he is the beneficiary. Then he will disclose it. He will also disclose his bank accounts and credit cards which is held by him. The assessee will furnish the detail of his bank account, and he will also provide the information about the credit cards which are held by him, and expenditure exceeding the prescribed limit which is incurred by him under prescribed head. If there is any expenditure which is incurred by the assessee in excess of prescribed limit, then the expenditure is also required to be furnished. It is required to be provided by the assessee. Means such assessee will furnish the information about the expenditure which is incurred by the assessee, and such expenditure is more than the prescribed limit, and such other ongoings as may prescribed. Means any other information which is required, all the particulars are required to be furnished by the assessor. Furnished by the assessor in his return of income. When he will file his return of income, he will furnish exempted income, the asset which is held by him as a beneficiary owner, or from any asset he is taking any benefit, bank account and detail of bank account and detail of credit card which is held by him, expenditure if it is incurred by him in excess of prescribed limit, and some other information as may be required, as may be prescribed. Particulars to be furnished with the return of income in the case of an assessee, the assessee who is engaged in the business or profession. Means what are the particulars which are required to be furnished? What are the particulars which are required to be furnished with the return of income in the case of an assessee? The assessee who is engaged in the business. Means if there is any assessee and such assessee he is engaged in the business. So what are the information? What are the particulars which are required to be furnished by such assessee? Section 139 subsection 6a. Section 139 subsection 6a. So when there is an assessee and such assessee is engaged in the business or profession, then such assessee is required to furnish these following information. Means the prescribed form of the return in the case of the assessee who is engaged in the business and profession also require him to furnish these information. Number one, he will provide the information about the report of any audit which is referred under section 44AB, means he will furnish or he will provide the information about the audit report. The audit report which is referred under section 44AB, and he will also provide the information or particulars of the location and the style of principal place of business where he carries the business or profession and all the branches therein. Means in his return of income, he will provide the information about each and every principal place of business, each and every branch where he is doing the business activity, from where he is doing the business activities. Means he will provide the location and the style of principal place of business where he carries the business and profession, and he will also provide the information about the each and every branch of his business. He will provide the name and the address of his partner. He will provide the name and the address of the partners, if any, in his business or profession. Means in the business or in the profession, if there is any partner with him, then he will also provide the information about him. Number 4, if he is a member of AOP or BOI, if the assessee he is the member of AOP and BOI, then the name of other members of such AOP and BOI he will disclose, and he will also disclose the share of the assessee and the share of all the partners and all the members, as the case may be, in the profit of the business or the profession and any branch. Means he will disclose the name of, means if he is a member, the assessee is a member of AOP and BOI, then he will disclose the name of other members, and he will also disclose the profit sharing of his as well as other members, which is arise the profit which is arising from such business. Defective return. What is the meaning of defective return? Section 139, subsection 9. Defective return. What is the meaning of defective return? So, when there is any defect is found by the AO, then when there is any defect, it is in the return of income, there is any defect and such defect is found by the A. And the AO has the right in this situation, in the case of defective return, in the case of when there is a defect in the return, then the assessing officer, he has the right or he has the power to call upon the assessee to rectify the defective return. Means if there is any defect, it is found by the assessee, it is found by the assessee, found by the assessing officer, then the assessing officer has the power, the AO has the power to call the assessee, to rectify these mistakes, and to rectify these defective return, and such a defective return, if the AO call the assessee to rectify such a mistake, then such a return is required to be rectified within the period of 15 days from the date of such intimation. Means in the respect of this, the AO will provide the intimation to furnish the clear return without any defect, and for the purpose of this, he will furnish or he may intimate or provide the intimation about such defect, and he will give the AO also give the opportunity to rectify such mistakes, to rectify such defect, and such defects are required to be rectified by the assessee within the period of 15 days from the date of intimation, and if the AO found that there is a reasonable opportunity, means there is a reasonable reason, then he may extend such period, means the period may be extended beyond 15 days. Means after the extension, the assessee can furnish such a defective return, means the non-defective return, means fine return within the period of 30 days, if he has got extension, so under this section, the AO has the power, under section the AO has the power to call upon the assessee to rectify the defective return. When there is any assessee, consider that the return of income which is furnished by the assessee, when the return of income which is furnished by the assessee is defective, then he may intimate. Then the AO, he will intimate to the assessee about such a defective return, and he will intimate about such a defective return, and he will also give the opportunity. The AO will also give the opportunity to rectify these mistakes, to rectify these defects. And these defects are required to be rectified within the period of 15 days. These defects are required to be rectified by the assessee within the period of 15 days, from the date of such intimation. If the AO found that there is the reasonable reason, then he may extend such period beyond 15 days. Means the maximum period will be 30 days if there is any exception. If the defect is not rectified by the assessee, within the period of 30 days, means within the period of 15 days or within the period of extended period, then such a return will be treated as invalid return. Means it will be considered that it is an invalid return, or it will be considered that no return has been furnished by the assessee. No return is furnished by the assessee if such a defect is not furnished by the assessee. If it is not rectified by the assessee within the specific time period, then it would be considered that it is an invalid return. And it will be considered that no return is filed. Means it will be considered that the return is not filed by the assessee if that defect is not rectified within the period of specific time. Means 15 days or 30 days if extension was there. Where, however, the assessee rectified the defect, if the assessee rectified the defect after the expiry of 15 days or the extended period, but before the assessment is made, then the assessee can condone the delay and treat the return as well as return. Is that if the assessee he has furnished or he has rectified the mistake or rectified the defective then within the period of after the expiry of such 15 days or after the expiry of extended period, but before the completion of assessment, then the AO can accept it and it will be considered as valid return. It will be considered as valid return. A return of the income shall be regarded as defective unless all the following conditions are fulfilled. Means a return will be considered as defective unless all the following conditions are fulfilled. Number one, the annexed statement or the column in the return of income relating to the compensation of income chargeable under each head of income, computation of gross total income and total income has been duly filled in. Means the annexed statement and the column in the return of income relating to the computation of income, relating to the computation of income chargeable under the each head of income, computation of gross total income and total income has been duly filled in. Duly filled in. Number two, the return of income is accompanied by the following, namely, number one, the statement which is showing the computation of total tax which is required to be payable by the assessee. Means the return of income is accompanied by the following, namely, number one, it will include the statement which is showing the computation of tax, which is showing the computation of amount of tax, the tax which is required to be payable by the assessee on the basis of return. Number two, the return of audit, which is obtained from the auditor under section 44 AD if the books of accounts are required to be audited by the chartered accountant. Then the audit report which is furnished or which is obtained under section 44 AB will also be considered as return of income. If such a report has been furnished prior to the furnishing of return of income, a copy of such a return and the proof of furnishing the report shall be extracted. It shall be extracted. Number three, the proof regarding the tax. The proof regarding the tax, if any. The proof regarding the tax, if any, and claimed to have been deducted or collected as source means if there is any proof regarding the tax, the proof of TDS and TCS and the advance tax and the payment of self-assessment tax, which is paid by the assessee, then it will also be considered. Means, however, the return will not be regarded as defective if a certificate of TDS and TCS was not furnished under section 203 or under section 206C to the person who is furnishing the return of income, and such a certificate is produced within the period of 2 years. Next point, the proof of amount of compulsory deposit, if any, claimed to have been paid under the compulsory deposit scheme means under the Income Taxpayer Act 1974, where the regular books of accounts are maintained by the assessee. There is any assessee and such assessee is maintaining the regular books of accounts. Then the return of income is accompanied by the following. Then the return of income, it will be accompanied by the following. Number one, the copy of manufacturing account, the copy of trading account, the copy of profit and loss account, and the copy of income and expenditure account or other significant account of balance sheet. Means if there is any assessee, he is preparing the books of account on the regular basis, then the return of income is accompanied by the copy of trading account, profit and loss account, and manufacturing account, income and expenditure account or balance sheet. The personal accounts as detailed below. Number one, proprietor, business or in the case of proprietary, business or profession. Then the personal account of the proprietor. In the case of proprietorship, the personal account of the proprietor. In the case of firm, in the case of AOP, and in the case of BOI, the personal account of the partner or the member. In the case of partner or the member of the firm, the partner and the member of firm, the member of AOP and BOI. Then the partner's personal account in the case of firm, and member's personal account in the case of AOP and BOI. In the case of AOP and BOI, members' personal accounts. Where the accounts of the assessee has been audited. When the accounts of the accounts of the assessee is required to be audited by the chartered accountant under section 44 AB, then the return shall be accompanied by the copy of audited profit and loss account. Means the audit report, it should be accompanied by the copy of audited profit and loss account and audit balance sheet and audited report and audit report. Where the cost account of the assessee has been furnished under section 148 of the Companies Act, then the return should be complied by such a report. Means where the provision of section 148 is applicable, 148 of the Companies Act is applicable on any organization, and it is preparing the cost report, then such a report, then the return should be accompanied by such cost report. Next point, where regular books of accounts are not maintained by the assessee. If the regular books of accounts are not maintained by the assessee, in this situation, the return of income shall be accompanied by. The return of income shall be accompanied by number one, statement which is indicating. The statement which is indicating the amount of turnover. The statement which is indicating the amount of turnover, the amount of gross receipt, the amount of GP, gross profit, the amount of expenses, the amount of net profit. Means if there is an assessee, he is not preparing the regular books of account. Means the regular books of accounts are not maintained by the assessee. Then the return shall be complied by. Means the return shall be complied by. It shall be complied by. Number one, a statement which is indicating a statement which is indicating the amount of turnover, the amount of gross receipt, gross profit, net profit, expenses, etc. of the business and profession. Number two, the basis on which such amount mentioned in point A above has been computed. Means on which basis these above amount are computed. It is also used to return. And number three, the amount of total sundry debtors, and stock entry and cash balance at the end of the previous year is also accompanied. Means the return will be contain all these following data. Means the return of income shall be accompanied by all this information. If the proper books of account or the regular books of accounts are not prepared by the assessee, if it is not prepared by the assessee. So on the basis of this, we have understood the concept of loss return, belated return, revised return, and we have also understand the defective return, the provision of defective return. So on the basis of such discussion, we have covered some most important provision of Income Tax Act. There are some other provisions we will discuss in our another class. So kindly consider all the classes of such a topic so that you can properly understand each and every provision properly. Thank you so much for watching this video. Okay, bye-bye and have a nice day.